You're here with Xavier Dagba. I am your host, Rinat Stralofer, and welcome back to Lively Conversations. I'm super excited about this particular interview. I just had a quick little conversation with Xavier as we were getting ready to click record. And I think we're both feeling into this beautiful resonance that's definitely brewing as we're getting ready for this very important, and I think one of the most important conversations we need to have in order to understand how to live life lively. So Xavier, welcome to Lively Conversations, and thank you so much for being here.
Well, it's my ultimate pleasure. And, I'm just feeling a lot of anticipation for this conversation because the theme that you want to address, the energy that you bring in, I really feel like it has a potential to shift a lot of people. So it's a pleasure to contribute to Lively in this fashion.
I love this. One of the things I was reading before I got into um, this space today was, knowing your own darkness is like the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. And it was an interesting quote. It was by Carl Jung, actually. And he went on to explain, like, we cannot change anything unless we accept it. And condemnation, he explains, is it doesn't liberate, it oppresses. And so we're going to get into a lot of these types of, I guess, the understanding of shadows today is not something that I think I would have heard, let's say, a decade ago. So I do feel like there's far more, I guess, availability of understanding and experiencing what is thy shadow, what is it to know thyself. And what I love about your work, Xavier, is, you go into such incredible depths of coaching to help people and to guide them into loving and also honoring the shadows that are within us and not bypassing and getting around it or trying to get away from negativity, understanding that shadow and negativity is not associated in the way that we've sort of been I guess told in the cinema, in the movies, or by particular gurus out there. And so this is what makes this exciting conversation so potent. It's just, I can already feel within myself like there are so many things that I want to talk to you about. But, you talk about leading love and serving from the heart, not your wounds. And when I read that on your website, I was like, I have to interview Xavier because this is exactly I guess, almost like a formula, an ingredient for living life lively. And you talk about it in the fact that it is how we illuminate and integrate those repressed parts of ourselves and live a more purposeful life. And we're going to get into this today. But I'm going to read out your bio. It's such a wonderful bio, Xavier. It says here that Xavier is a trauma-informed transformational life coach and shadow work facilitator. He loves to think of himself as an emotional alchemist. His work and teachings are infused with the intent of transmitting the sacred wisdom of the heart. Xavier's transformational journey brought him to dive into the universe of shadow work, and he tends to think that only when you are willing to illuminate and integrate your shadow can you fully feel alive and embody your power. He feels alive the most when he helps people shed their limitations, embrace their repressed power, and live from their heart, not their wounds, as I said before. So I want to start off, Xavier, by asking, for those unfamiliar with shadow work the way you see it, how would you explain it, and what is the significance of it in emotional well-being?
Yeah. Well, the I'm gonna dive straight to it, but before I would love to express your gratitude for being here. It's something I don't take for granted. So the work you're doing, the platform you're building, the intent that is animating your heart, it's an honor to contribute to that. So thank you for having me. And now going back to shadow work, of course, I have to start with the shadow. And what is the shadow? It's the storehouse of everything we have repressed within ourselves, either consciously or unconsciously. It's everything that is, that you might say is unconscious, and the parts of us that we don't even know are there. It's like the parts of your beingness that you don't even know you have. And that includes a lot of the pain that at some point you repressed because we needed to function. A lot of the traumas. It includes a lot of the parts of us that were perceived as unlovable, that people around us couldn't nurture growing up, or parts of us that when you would express these parts growing up, you would be met with a withdrawal of love, from like people who really counted, you know. And when you realize that, okay, if I express this aspect of me, it's going to be met by a withdrawal of love by mom, by dad, by somebody that I really care about, maybe a teacher, then you know what? Let me repress that part. Let me push it in the shadow. It can also contain the brightness that scares the hell out of you, the gift that you feel unworthy of really embracing, or the gift that the light that wasn't necessarily nurtured growing up. So the shadow is this big, I want to say, instrument consciousness that we are all equipped with. And shadow work is the journey, is the journey back to fullness, is the journey back to wholeness. It's really about integrating all of who we are. People in spiritual communities are often looking for that wholeness and that oneness. And what that looks like, it's sometimes some sort of like spiritual dissociation because they are going towards only the bright. I want to be one with kind of like the beauty and the brightness of the divine and God and all of that. It's like when you talk about wholeness, if it excludes the parts that are difficult to be with, it's not wholeness. It is some sort of spiritual dissociation. It's not wholeness. So people have for the longest time we've operated from that paradigm, meaning I don't want to see what is dark. We have this deep fear of darkness that has been, some could argue has been programmed in us. We have this deep fear of the unknown because darkness is also the unknown. To the psyche, the unknown equals darkness. It's like, I don't know what is there. Terrifying to get there. So shadow work is the work of like illuminating and integrating the unknown, the dark. And integrating, when you really get in there, it has many different tenets. Integration has tenets. And the first one, in my opinion, is like a radical and sobering degree of awareness. And by awareness here, I include first curiosity. In order to become aware, you got to be curious. You have to be willing to open your eyes and willing to open your eyes in a very honest way. You have to be willing to be disillusioned over and over again. And being disillusioned, it is actually having the illusions breaking or falling apart. It's such a necessary aspect to the journey of shadow integration. Are you willing to be disillusioned? Are you willing to explore a different perspective? So many people give lip service to this. They're like, yeah, I want to. You just like really sit with your shit and you're gonna find out it's a different ball game to do that. So there's that radical, sobering degree of openness, curiosity. Let me see. I want to see the things that were here. I want to know myself. I want to be intimate with myself. There's this deep longing. And then there is stepping out of denial that is also necessary because we often come up with so many rationalizations, meaning that's not really true. We start defending our former selves. We're like, no, that's not really true. The anger that I felt inside, no, it wasn't really anger. Or the agitation that I felt inside, we start rationalizing, we start over explaining why we shouldn't feel the way we feel, or we shouldn't see, or what we saw shouldn't exist within ourselves. We should a lot. So there's this sobering degree of awareness. See truthfully, are you willing to do that? Radically honest. The second part is a sobering degree of acceptance. And acceptance doesn't say this is good. Acceptance says this is here and it's okay that it's here. There's a big difference because sometimes things that we have to integrate are things that can be very destructive or propensity to want to hurt people. It can be very destructive if you really on it. But this is also something that is really necessary to integrate when you are feeling a lot of aggression and hostility inside of you, romancing the aggression and the hostility and the hidden forces beneath it. It's necessary to do so. Not so much because, usually people what they would attempt to do here would be, no, this is bad. I just need to push that away. I just need to repress it. A very dangerous person is a person that is not intimate with the propensity for violence and wanting to hurt others. Somebody that is not really intimate with their rage and their propensity for wrath. It's a very dangerous person. But somebody that has romance, the capacity to hurt, and knows how to relate to that and not from that. Key distinction relating to my capacity for aggression, not from that. It's meaning I'm not hijacked by it. I can relate to it. I can feel my own impulses and I know how to contain my impulses. I know how to work with them. I know how to meet the hidden forces beneath that. And I can even dissolve some of the impulses there. That is somebody that is safe to be around. So there is that radical, sobering degree of acceptance, meaning, you know what? This is here. It is part of who I am. I have the capacity to do some of the most evil things out there. It is within me. Yet I choose not to act on it, but I'm aware of that. Meaning when it's triggered and activated inside of me, instead of letting it take over and hijack me and go out there and hurt people I care about, I can actually relate to it consciously and remain curious, not only within myself, but also with the people out there that seem to that appear like a threat eventually. The last one is compassion. These three tenets: awareness, acceptance, compassion. And compassion is the part of, is that ability to open your heart to the parts of you that used to be in the dark. It's like you're bringing them in. Same thing you do when you're working on repressed pain and you meet that inner child inside of you that you had exiled in the shadow, and you develop that deep love and compassion for that younger self. We get to learn how to be compassionate with our darkness. And shadow work is it's really that embrace. It's that inner embrace, that inner illumination. It's expanding the capacity of the human heart to love. And the more you are able to do that within, the more it's easier to offer that to people outside there. And to finish answering the question, I would love to offer this thing, perception about the shadow itself. People often look at the shadow as, this thing that they would rather not have to deal with. Like if they could have an amputation and get rid of the shadow or finish all their shadow work in a period of 6 months and then get done with it, they would. But I really see the dance between dark and light as an integrative dance. And life is really that dance between dark and light. And in my opinion, conscious shadow work is just a natural aspect of the journey of expansion. They work together the same way you work on embracing your brightness, the same way, the parts of us that you need to integrate so that you can actually actualize that brightness are gonna come up. So it's like a beautiful dance. So here's an analogy. Growing up, you were hurt. Something happened to you, and the pain was too great. And your shadow looked at you. It said, "Give me the pain. I will hold it for you so that you can function." You realize that there's a part of you that your parents don't really accept very much. Your shadow looked at you and said, "Give me that part of you. I will hold it so that you can function in this world that is not ready for your fullness." And you realize that, yeah, you go on the playground, you work with people, and then you have a specific trait that causes you to not have some friends, whatever trait that is, that you get bullied for or rejected for. Your shadow goes again, "Give me that trait. I will hold it for you so that you can have some friends. And maybe you will learn how to people please for now. And when you're ready to integrate, I will hand you back this trait." You started expressing some of your gifts and you realized that, ooh, people didn't know how to appreciate that and you were criticized for it. Your shadow said, "Give me that gift. Give me that brightness. I will hold it for you until you know how to hold it yourself." At the core of the essence of the shadow, there is ultimate benevolence for you. It is holding all the parts that you didn't know how to hold yet. There's ultimate benevolence. I often call the shadow itself the dark face of your higher self, the dark face of divinity, the one that we are learning how to romance. I often like to call it the dark face of the moon, the one that you are like, you turn around, you're like, okay, what the hell is going on here? And when you start realizing it, maybe it can help dissolve a little bit the fear of darkness and to realize that, okay, maybe there are actually riches here for me to reclaim. So that's how I can really introduce some sort of like perception of shadow work that hopefully is a little bit more inviting to people because it's sad to say that we have a fear of the shadow.
Mm. Yeah, I love that you express so beautifully. I'm going to talk about people pleasing in just a moment, so I'm just going to flag that. But um, that that we almost, the word must actually comes through to me. It's like we must have a dark side if we're to be whole, you know, that wholesomeness that you talked about. And you know, one of the things that we often talk about here on the show is, you know, purpose, and you know, how can we really find purpose if it's everything feels light and easy? Like, is there really so much purpose in that? And you know, one of the things, I'm going to get into people pleasing right now because you touched on it, and I do think that is so prevalent in the world that we're living in today, and also just how we're um you know, sort of like advertising ourselves to the world. And the role of social media in that whole landscape is quite grand. Like, I guess, you know, it does provide, I guess, an opportunity, I will say it like this, an opportunity for us to meet our shadows, because there's a lot of comparisons going on online and perfectionism and all those things. And I don't actually say to look away from those things. You know, I see it as an invitation. It's an invitation. And I'm sure you would agree, because otherwise people will say, just put away your phone, just put that thing away. It's like putting anything away, it doesn't matter what that thing is, I guess, the antithesis of what you're saying. You're asking us to meet it, you know. And I'd like to explore that, because I think people pleasing has a lot to do with, you know, just don't say, you put away the thing you want to say, don't do the thing you want to do, or just do what other people expect of you. And there's no invitation there. And I think that the greatest shadow work that I've ever been a part of is when I offer an invitation to some of those, I guess, like what you just beautifully and poetically described is like the holding. I offer the invitation to be held in that space. So could you take us through a little bit more of that?
I mean, people pleasing, it's such I like, instead of using people pleasing, I usually like using so much more self-abandonment, especially when we reject ourselves to appease, we reject ourselves to be likable, we reject ourselves to belong, we reject ourselves to avoid being persecuted, we reject ourselves to avoid experiencing loss. So when you look at the whole thing, you now realize that beneath what we call people pleasing, there is first oh, very often there's a rejection of self. You know, it's like in order to please, sometimes we have to put a mask on, not show our true nature, maybe not express our frustration and anger in some situations or disappointment. Sometimes we don't even express things that we true needs and desires. So it's like there's a rejection of self at the core of people pleasing. And that rejection of self is fueled by fears. And I usually identify 5 fears when it comes to, people pleasing and everything really that has to do with self-abandonment. The first one is the fear of humiliation. And that fear of humiliation is, you know, you're I guess we all have that experience when you shrink because somebody makes you feel small or says something about you that makes you feel shame, and then you internalize that there's something about you that is not adequate. At some point in our journey, sometimes when we're very young, we have our first experiences of humiliation, maybe on the playground, or you were mocked by somebody, maybe in your home. And humiliation, it really gets us to shrink. it's like, holy crap, it's almost as if there's a stain on your soul or a stain on your heart. And that stain, we try to kind of rub it, we try to get it to go away. But the meaning that we have created, which is there's something wrong with me, or I am bad, or, that is the stain. And sometimes, in order to transmute the stain, we get to be with the feeling fully and open the heart to the part of us that felt trapped in smallness. There's that fear of humiliation. And that fear of humiliation often creates an addiction that we are not really aware of, an addiction to pride, or an addiction to receiving praise. What I mean by that is pay attention to when you experience, for example, um, imposter syndrome. What's going on in there is like, I only want to allow myself to be seen if I have all guarantees possible that I will not experience humiliation. That's what it means. There's another way to look at that imposter. It's like, I only want to show up if I have all guarantees and all certainty that I will receive praise and appreciation. So there's a core need of receiving acknowledgement, appreciation, and all of that. But because eventually at some point in your journey was missing, then deep, deep attachment to receiving praise. And sometimes it can show up in very defensive ways and self-righteous ways. We defend ourselves a lot. We do everything we can to protect our self-esteem. That's usually what you see on social. People will do absolutely everything they can to protect a fragile self-esteem, will defend themselves, they will be self-righteous, they will make you wrong, they will project, they will do everything they can just so that they don't flirt with the feeling, oh, maybe there's something inadequate about me or about the way I'm looking at the world. So we get very fierce at protecting that. And people pleasing is part of it. And that fear of humiliation, it is also a master teacher. It really wants to teach us about the meaning of true humility. And it's an integrative humility. It's a humility that is able to hold our imperfections and hold our light all at once. It's a humility that doesn't say, "Oh, look at me, how small I am." That's to me sometimes false humility, because sometimes you get to have a clear assessment of yourself too. When you clearly have a talent and you're aware of it, you're like, it's okay to acknowledge it. But humility it creates a bridge between your humanness and your divinity, in my opinion. Humility, a grounded level of humility doesn't say, no, 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 no. I'm this small, I'm this tiny speck, which is true. On one end, you are that tiny speck. And on another end, you also have a seed of divinity inside of you. And humility is able to accept all of it. So that when somebody says something that could be perceived as humiliating, you're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, that's fine. I'm not so big that I cannot take somebody disagreeing with me or somebody saying, talking shit about me. That's okay. You're entitled to that way of perceiving me. And at the same time, this will not get me to disown myself. But there's a fear of humiliation. There's a fear of alienation, big one, the fear of being rejected, the fear of being excluded. You know, and beneath that, there's also a genuine need, which is, I want to belong. I want to find my people. I want to be part of a tribe. But sometimes when we have experienced the void of belonging, we actually create an addiction to belonging. So the need to belong is great. And then we sometimes create an addiction to belonging, meaning sometimes I would rather be part of like people I have absolutely no resonance with. And if I put masks on, that's absolutely okay. But I'll do everything I can so that I do not experience again alienation. So again, that alienation, which is that pain of alienation, becomes your master teacher. That part of you that is like, hey, come meet me, come hang out with me, come flirt with me, come show me that you can be in my presence without disowning yourself. Show me that you can actually experience feeling excluded without disowning yourself. Show me that you can actually walk alone if you need to without disowning yourself. It's a master teacher. He wants to sober us up from the addiction to belonging so that whenever being excluded is a risk that you're perceiving, you will not make the choice to abandon your truth. And that's another thing that's so crucial to be able to master. Another one that is there, it's like the fear of, you know, persecution. It's like, oh, I may get attacked. Anyone that has been bullied at some point in their journey knows really well what the fear of persecution is. It's like, I may go to school so innocently, and somebody may just attack me for something that I don't even know why they are attacking me, but they're just attacking me for being in my natural, authentic self. They're just attacking me for that. So on social media, we have a lot of that. We have a lot of like people that will attack you for free. In the comment sections, we have a lot of the keyboard warriors out there. It's like, are you able to also reclaim your inner warriorship? Meaning, I will not allow the, the potential of getting attacked be the thing that will cause me to disown myself. I will stand in my authenticity, express the boundaries that I needed. I will reclaim my capacity to give a fair fight when it comes to, it's like, can you reclaim your heart-centered anger? That's what the master, that fear of persecution, that's also in its own way a master teacher. It's like, can you reclaim your inner fire? Not in terms of like hostility and aggression, but can you reclaim the capacity to stand your ground in your truth and be like, this is the hill where I die? Can you access that within yourself? So it's like all these things that cause us to want to please others, all these fears, humiliation, alienation, loss, betrayal, persecution, they're all master teachers. And if you are able to sit with them, every single one of them comes with a strong, powerful message, a strong, powerful message, which is the possibility of experiencing this fear is no longer something that will cause me to disown myself. And when you are getting to that place, people pleasing becomes something of the past. It's no longer something that you do compulsively or, unconsciously. You can still decide to do something genuinely kind and beautiful for somebody else, but it's like a conscious act. It's not done out of fear or trying to avoid fear. It's done out of the genuine generosity of your heart. And that's when giving is actually nurturing for all parts included. It's so good to give from a place where you are choosing to give instead of like feeling coerced to give by your own fears that are internalized. And I often like to think about our fears like pain from the past that we are projecting onto the future. But if you allow yourself to actually sit with the pain from the past and resolve the pain from the past, then you are proving to your psyche, from now on, I know how to handle this pain. It is no longer a reason why I should abandon myself. And you integrate and you walk forward feeling more empowered. So, yeah, if you have more specifics around people pleasing, we can dive in there. But that's just like a big vision that I can
I,
offer.
I need a moment because the amount of goosebumps I got from that, and also my head was like doing exclamation points, like just like yeah, just so resonating with what you were saying. And I mean, everything you're describing, most people would probably say is like a trauma response, right? That you often hear like trauma response. So we're going to get into that now. But you've just explained like the process of like recognizing what that is and how we navigate it for healing, because ultimately it's not something that we want to meet it, to offer it an invitation to heal and to sit with us and to teach us. And when you look at it as a teacher, it's a whole new paradigm, because you're not looking at it as something that needs to go away. Oftentimes healing is associated with going away, but I think what you've just beautifully expressed is healing is an invitation to sit and meet. That for me is healing. It's reframing words and understanding of how we heal. And healing doesn't never mean something goes away forever. Healing means that you know how to integrate, how to own, how to sit with, and how to be fully embodied. So I'd love for you to, speaking of embodiment, and I want to talk to you about something a bit more personal to you. I mean, obviously for you to be able to do this work, I would I come to the understanding that you've had to embody quite a lot of this in your own life, so you may be describing things. I would ask if you are describing things that you have dealt with and felt, to reclaim Xavier. So I want to talk to you about your journey on how it is that you are this man today that can express that from a place that I've never heard it come from, that place before. You've
Well, I want to go ahead, please.
No, I'm saying you've
I'm
lived.
sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
I was saying that it's so obvious that you've fully lived this. You
Mhm.
are walking the lived experience of it. So I'd love for you to explain, and to take us on that journey of these rites of passage that have been presented, the invitations that you were able to meet.
Yeah. Well, you said something about healing and really a radical reframing of healing. And at this point, my highest understanding of healing is radical intimacy with all. It's like really about intimacy with all. Intimacy with the pain, the pleasure, the hurt, the darkness, the light. It's like really intimate. It's like when you stand on that road and you say, I am ready to heal. Life itself is waiting for you on the other side. It's like, are you really ready to be intimate with all the forms that I can take within you and outside of you? And if you say yes to that, come over. Let's have some fun. So it's really radical intimacy with everything, with life itself. That's how I see expansion and healing. So about my journey, I don't know where to start. I've been living in Canada for over 10 years now. Before that, I was born and raised in Cameroon. It's a country in central region of Africa. That's where I grew up. My parents are hardcore Catholic Christians, so I was raised with like the Catholic ethics, and part of me always knew that there was more, without being able to put my fingers on it. Just had a sense that the conditioning that I was given was a little bit incomplete. Growing up, I grew up around, you might say, early on, there was a certain degree of intimacy with darkness. I realized that when I came to Canada, I realized that in the West, there is not a very much the culture is not really attuned to darkness. It's not something that's talked about besides, unless it is really compartmentalized in horror movies. It's like in horror movies, but in daily life, it's like, nah. Like people get horrified when they hear about the crime that has been committed there or something like that. And it makes sense. It makes sense to be horrified by it. But I grew up in a place where um I witnessed so many wars going on around, in the neighboring countries, neighboring regions, genocide going on when I was really young in Rwanda. And we were watching all of that really young. It's like you become aware of the capacity, like dictatorships. I grew up in a dictatorship. The president, the guy that is in the president of the country right now, he's been in charge for 40 years. Um, so I grew up in this space where the first thing you become aware of is uh, the dark side of human nature. The first thing you become aware of. And because you become aware of that, and, you know, as an example, back home, um, if a thief is caught, 90% chance, that thief is going to lose his life. Almost certain. So I've seen dead bodies growing. I've seen people being killed in front of me because they stole something, like public um, killing. So growing up, there was really this deep awareness of the dark side of human nature. And it was just like accepted in the culture. So and it really brought to my awareness, yeah, we are not all that love and light wasn't part of my language. It was like brutality, violence was a big part of it. we were fortunate enough where I grew up to have parents that were educated. My parents went to university, both of them, and they invested, even though they were really low level middle class, they invested in our education, me and my six siblings. So when I graduate, well, I finished high school, first degree, I become a maths teacher. That was my first degree. And then I was like, yeah, that's not what I want to do with my life. And then I get a bachelor in mathematics and then a master's in mathematics. I'm like, yeah, that's not it. And then I have a complete shift and I go get a master's in statistics and economics. I'm like, yeah, that's not it. I had the opportunity to work there back home, and I was like, yeah, I'm not. That's not what I'm invited to do. There was always that kind of spiritual inclination, but I didn't know what that looked like. And I tell my parents that I want to go pursue a PhD, and I figure out a way to get a scholarship, full paid scholarship for PhD in economics, and I come to Canada in 2013 and I get into the PhD, start researching, and I've always been interested in integration, regional integration, economic integration, which is what my master's thesis was about. Economic integration, the case of Central Africa. That's my thesis. And I come on in a PhD and I want to study more integration, economic integration, monetary integration, because part of me felt like coming together was the way. And I start researching that. I get on the monetary markets and I learn about big money, and then I realize how some of the how big money is run globally, and I'm like disgusted. I'm like, no, this is not the way. I get really disgusted by um the big, let's just call it big money, big financial markets and the central banks, how the policies are done. And I start learning about all of this, and I'm just like, it is all of it counterintuitive for the good of all, the ways the policies are being made. And I don't want to contribute to that. So I had this kind of like rude awakening. It's like all this impact that I think I'm gonna have through, you know, maybe working. I had an internship at the United Nations in Africa for 6 months. I was like, yeah, maybe I can have an impact here. And I was just like, yeah, disillusioned. That's a keyword. You got to be willing to be disillusioned. And I just fall from grace and I start realizing, okay, this is not the place for me. And to many people, this would be, is it the only reason why you gave up on your PhD? Yeah, yeah. It may sound small to many people, because you have the security of finishing that or getting a job in a university or in a organization there in a bank, which I could have gotten. And I was just like, when my heart is not into something, it's really difficult to sell myself into that thing. So in 2013, towards the end, beginning 2014, I make the decision to begin to step back from the PhD, but I don't tell my family and my parents back home. And for them, I represent, for my siblings, for my parents, it's just like almost a role model to a certain degree, because I forged my own path. Like my parents didn't have to give me a single penny for school studies, to the only thing, my dad paid for my plane ticket, and he was like, this is as far as I can support you. From now on, you're on your own. It's like that's the best I can do for you right now. You have five other siblings here that I still have to take care of, still have to support. You on your own, my friend. You know that. And then, when I left, I knew that I was on my own. So I come here, drop out of the PhD, um, big humiliation for the whole family. We have like a period of 2.5 years of not really talking to each other. Um, like disowning messages coming from them. It was a big deal. They felt hurt, and I understand why they were hurt. I was hurt too because I felt misunderstood, isolated, and I was in a foreign land and I didn't feel welcome home. Like, okay, I'm gonna have to find a way to make things work here. And there are moments of humiliation, moments of like leaving the PhD and like I feel like I can do things to help people. I call it dark night of the ego because my old identity needed to collapse as the researcher, as the PhD guy, as the ego of the intellectual and the scholar. It needed to collapse. The guy that had written the paper that we presented at the United Nations in at a conference in 2013 in South Africa. I was like, okay, now I'm gonna go get a job as a dishwasher in a restaurant because I cannot pay my rent, which is something that happened. I'm gonna work in a restaurant. Felt the shame of all of that, but also received the humility that was part of the journey. Um, there was just a moment of getting really curious about so many things. There was the amplification of the spiritual journey and the start of I started so many endeavors, started companies that did not work. I was like, I gotta find a way to work for myself. I need independence. I don't want to rely on any system. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to start with helping people with their health and wellness. And I took my first training was like a fitness coach, trainer, started nutrition trainings and creating health plans for people. And I was like, okay, we're going to open the gym. We opened the gym with some partners. Did not work. We ended up closing the gym in 2018. Um, but in the meantime, there was just so much hardship in like exploring and finding who am I in this new paradigm that I'm entering into. That was really challenging at times, and the feelings of betrayal stirred so much inside of me. The rejection stirred so much inside of me. I had moments of just like wandering around in the city of Montreal, and just some point in time, you're looking at the last $10 that you have in your pocket because you're so broke. And I put myself on that path and I'm like, okay, I got to take responsibility for that. And it fucking hurts. And you just start, you have your good sub on the park bench, you know, eating cashews at the time and really feeling miserable. And instead of running away from the misery, I had moments of regretting and being like, who sent me here? Like, what took me? Like, what came over me and was just like, couldn't you wait to just finish that PhD? Or it's all of these thoughts, all these came up during that time. And I had no other choice than deepening the exploration. I had moments of like being homeless for a few weeks because, you know, um, didn't have money to pay for my rent. That happened so many times. Um, and then at some point, there's just this kind of reclamation of self-worth that needs to happen. It's like, no, this is not how things end for me. This is not how I'm letting this story end for me. So around 2018, there was I was already taking a few trainings in like mindset coaching, and during all that time, I was just curious about myself. I was just like, how do I deal with this anxiety and pain? I had moments of having panic attacks. From 2016 to 2018, I started developing deep asthma, and I was really fit. Like, it didn't make sense that I would develop asthma. The way I understand the asthma during that time was just like the external manifestation or the physical manifestation of my own emotional repression because I was resisting the calling. I was resisting surrendering to, like, I was looking at, I felt the impulse, oh, I can go deeper than just like health coaching. I'm not exploring life coaching. But there I was like, look at you. You're a kid from Africa who came to the West, and then you're like, you're gonna coach people? What the hell do you know about life? That conversation stayed with me for years. I was like, no, I don't have any, like, I don't have anything to coach people about. They were just, I had destroyed my trust in myself going through that hardship. I came from this pride from being the scholar and falling to the rock bottom point had just eroded a lot of that self-trust and it needed to be rebuilt slowly. The failures financially, I tried many things. The network marketing, personal trainer, build gym owner. At some point, I even started to do social media for a restaurant where I was working in. I just did everything I could to get a few bucks here and there. Everything, absolutely everything. And 2018, what happened that year? I've been with my partner right now, my fiance, for close to 9 years. She's the mother of our three kids, and she's been with me through. I need to give her credit for everything because I'm not really sure that I would have persisted if she wasn't there, just like witnessing the dark of the dark, but also seeing like we're making it. I was like, we call you delusional. She's like, we are making it. Like, I don't know. She saw me when I couldn't see myself. I literally couldn't. Um, so in 2018, we get pregnant with our first son, and that was a pivotal moment for me. I was like, I am not going to be the example of a father that is going to give up at rock bottom. That was a pivotal moment. April 2018, it's when he is conceived. So he was born in 2019. But April 2018, I just stopped the flirting with the calling. Um, and weirdly enough, I decided to just like cut off with our old business, the network marketing part, but also the gym business. With the partners we had, I just told them, you know what, take the name, take whatever you want. I am out. Let's just like agree on some sort of like exit strategy. I am out. Um, I just like went in deeper with reconciling with my parents, my siblings. I had missed weddings, the wedding of my older brother, the wedding of my younger sister, the birth of nephews. I was too broke to even afford a plane ticket. So there was deep grief inside of me for feeling like I was a piece of shit of a brother, of a son. And all that shame, I just needed to be with it, to feel it. Weirdly enough, towards the end of 2018, all the asthma symptoms go away. Weirdly enough, all the asthma symptoms go away. I was already kind of like bringing more of the clients that I had from the health coaching towards, closer to where I was going. And I just shifted completely. My presence online drastically changed that time. I was no longer trying to force fit health and fitness coaching into what I wanted to do. I was just like, you know what? I'm really called to work on the darkest aspects of the human psyche, and I'm going to surrender to that journey. I'm going to embrace it. Didn't know what that looked like. Shadow work wasn't that popular back then, 2018 and 2017 to 2016 when I started finding out about shadow work. It wasn't that much widespread on the internet, and there was just big moments of like surrender after surrender and flirting with the unknown and not knowing where it's going to lead me. And yeah, that's the peak of transformation. Well, the transformation continues into parenting and everything that unfolded with the COVID era. And in the 3 years of like all this madness of COVID, when the world felt like it was falling apart, we had three kids in 3 years, 2019, 2020, 2021. And there was also just like big expansion going on there. It's just like, okay, the father in me is awakening. What does it look like for me to embrace that and to embrace my work? What does it look like for me to continue doing the best to hold all of these different areas of my life in the more integrated way possible? And of course, I fuck up a lot. And can that be okay? And I keep showing up. Anyways, that's in a nutshell what my journey has been over the last 10 years.
I mean, obviously, you can never really fully, I guess, articulate every part of one's life in a podcast, but what you've just done is so beautifully. You've been able to like address the exhaustion. I hope that's okay that I say that because I felt it, but it's like the exhaustion, the frustration that often all of us, have gone through, to try multiple approaches without what may seem to be success on that approach, but ultimately leads to success because you've adopted so much emotional understanding of your limitations as you go on and you develop. And I think that's what this beautiful story really encompasses. And I think it's why you're such an incredible speaker on shadow work, because I interviewed Helena Nordbrick Hodge, and she did a documentary called The Economics of Happiness. And here I'm just thinking, like, the economics of shadow work, like, I wonder what the economics of that would even look like if it was to be studied. Excuse me. Excuse me. But I want to ask you why you believe that this, like, integrating of one's shadow is so crucial for purpose, because I feel like that's what you were very much expressing, is the purpose in every single part of it. In that entire story that we've built up of our lifetimes, there is purpose, even if what may seem like a non-successful partnership, business, whatever it may be, that there's purpose. And I think we often find that we don't look for purpose in things that don't work out for us. And that is, I think, quite a formula for shadow work, because it's about understanding how that's still integrating within, what you talk about within one's shadow, within one's life, within the journeys that we take. That journey that you talked about as what you see as healing. But it's also what I love about what you write about is, like, it's almost like this end of self-sabotage. Like, nothing ever feels like it should be punished. Something should be punished for not having succeeded. We understand that we are all about looking for, I guess, some level of survival and safety, but it's the strength that we draw from not feeling safe and not feeling sure of ourselves and what we're capable of. The amount of strength that's derived from that place. And that's often why I think people admire gurus and teachers, is because they've gone on this hero's journey and they listen to stories like this and they go, wow, like, look at how they've looked at their journey. Look at how they have observed themselves on their path. And I think that's the greatest story. It's the story of how we embrace our own divinity to own everything about ourselves,
Absolutely. You mentioned how the parts of the journey that are the least pleasant part are also part of the path to purpose. And that's really how I see it. I often say purpose is not a destination, it's not an activity, it's not a job, it's not something you do, it's a path. And we usually buy into the illusion that we are not on purpose. And I really challenge that a lot. I often like to tell people that if your soul no longer had purpose in this moment, you would be dead, because the soul doesn't have time to waste. It's a very kind of like limited way to perceive the whole thing, but I like to offer that because the only reason why you are still alive here is because, on a certain degree, there's a certain purpose that is being honored, that is being played out. There is a certain, like, soul's intent that is actually being, it is unfolding, even though it doesn't look like it. So the understanding of purpose itself is something that we have, in my opinion, a little bit, it's a little bit, it's been travestied a little bit, if I'm going to use that word. It's like we look at it as the impact. I want to, it's like all, and it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong here, trying to downplay it. Oh, it's great. Have the beautiful impact you can have there. But for some people, that impact can look like a lot of different ways, really. So the understanding purpose as that kind of like glamorized, impactful life that social media is kind of portraying is a big misunderstanding. And some people might actually be experiencing precisely what their soul intended to experience right now, but because they are living under the impression, no, being in my purpose should look like this or should look like that, therefore it creates this feeling of dissatisfaction. So one of the things that I've started embracing is I really think that the seat of purpose inside of us is the heart. The heart knows. The heart is not an instrument of duality. It has no poles. The mind, the brain has two, as an organ, it has hemispheres, right and left. It needs to work in that polar way until we kind of balance it and bring it to coherence. But the heart has it has none of that. The heart is the core of integration. And if we push it a little bit more in terms of like the East traditions, the way they look at every single energy center, the heart is at the core of the more elevated spiritual centers, the ones that have to do with like inspiration, perception, willpower, with more elevated spiritual centers, and the lower ones that have to do with our humanness. The like center of self-esteem, the third chakra, if you're gonna call it this way. The second one that has more to do with like finances, relationship, and all these different things, and creativity, and the lower one that has to do with tribe. The heart is at the intersection. So the heart knows. So when you say, I want to be on purpose, I want to experience what it feels like to have deep meaning in my life, which is, in my opinion, another way of saying, I want to find that purpose. I want to live purpose, which is, we actually just want to realize that we're already living it and maybe walk the path of purpose more skillfully. The heart sends two orders at the same time. That's how I like to explain it. The heart is going to send one direct order to your higher self and another one to your shadow self, all at once. To your higher self, the heart is going to say, bring down right now aspects of my brightness that I get to embrace in order to live more of my purpose. Bring it right now. I need to actualize that. I need to actualize that. And then your heart is going to say to your lower self, bring me every shadow material that is repressed that I need to integrate in order to be more, to have more meaning in my life, to be more on purpose. Give me all of that. And at that very moment, every single thing you cross, every single thing you move through is part of the purpose. It is part of the way. It is not in the way. Hardship, it is part of it. It's not in the way of it. Meaning there's an opportunity for integration. Can you meet that with an open heart? If you look at somebody that is reflecting such a beautiful aspect of brightness, and you're like, wow, how can they shine so bright? And now you're like, if you look at it from an integrative perception, you're just like, oh, this is an attempt to remind me of the brightness that I haven't owned within myself yet. I often ask people, pay attention to the people that you admire, and the people that you envy, and the people that you deeply hate. All of these people, they are stewards of your light. They are trying to remind you of what you need to integrate within yourself so that you can be more on purpose. So when you look at them, don't hate on them. Don't just like hate on the one you envy. Don't criticize the one that seems to shine too bright. Ask yourself, what is it mirroring within myself that I get to reclaim in this now moment? So with that awareness, you start realizing that every single thing in your life is serving your purpose. Absolutely everything in your life. And it upgrades even the definition of gratitude that you usually operate from. It is no longer gratitude in terms of like, no, I am only grateful for things that feel good. I've worked with people that have come to a place where they are grateful for the deepest traumas that they have experienced. And I know people, I've worked with people that have experienced ritual abuse, the worst kind of like abuse that you can think of. And they can look at it and being like, holy shit. I never thought there would be a moment where I would look back at what happened. And instead of blaming, and instead of like, being completely reactive, I could actually be receptive to the journey. It's like gratitude is receptivity. And the moment you look at an experience that is tremendously challenging and you feel that receptivity, you have activated grace. And that grace turns the experience directly into wisdom, wounds into wisdom, and can happen at a speed that really, oh, I don't even have the words. That shocks you. It really shocks you. There is something in the heart-centered awareness of a human being applied to an experience that is tremendously challenging. That heart-centered awareness, that curious awareness, that it's not some sort of like, let me cover the whole thing in with rose-colored glasses. If there is pain in there, meet that with that kind of like radical openness. Feel that pain. Let it hit you. Instead of trying to process it, let it process you. Let it open your heart. Let it break it open. We often say all the time, I need to process my pain. I need to transmute my anger. It's like, don't transmute it. Let it transmute you. You are the one that needs transmutation. It is not the feeling. You are the one in need of transmutation. You are the one in need of alchemy. It is not the feeling itself. The feeling is the feedback mechanism that leads you to the transmutation. So let it have its way with you, of course, in a way that you can deal with and tolerate in your respectful of your own capacity. We often play with the thought form that we need to transmute stuff, whereas these things need to transmute us and they really need to process us so that the heart can open again, so that that engine of love within you can begin to function again, and all the gunk that has been stuck in there can begin to be removed. And what happens is like radical liberation. You start realizing every single thing that seemed to be in the way was actually part of the way. Every dragon was actually ushering you towards something more magnificent and beautiful. And that doesn't mean that you're going to lean into some sort of like nirvana experience, because the destination of integration is here, more fully here, not bypassing, not dissociated, not, fragmented, but like fully here. You can taste with your flesh and feel with your soul. It's like being human is a destination. We ascend to be here more fully. And then you start realizing that the purpose that you're talking about is, what would it look like for you to be here more fully? Roots and soul, all of what is in between. What does it look like for you to be here? That's the reason why we do this work, in my opinion.
Wow. I think I've said wow more in this interview than any other interview I've ever done. I want to talk to you about what you term the golden shadow. I'm very, very intrigued by this.
Yeah, yeah. The golden shadow is the brightness we kept in the dark. That's what the golden shadow is. And every single time you shine a little too bright, and you're like, we have all these sayings. The puppies that grow to the highest are the ones that will be cut first. And I often call that the Jesus wound that we all have to a certain degree. And it's, to people that get sensitive around religion, it has nothing to do with religion. But just think about it for a second. And let's just play with the life story of this being. Somebody that comes on planet Earth, shines, and many masters, um, even even women masters, and not many of them have been like really recognized as such, but there's been many. Um, Brightness is terrifying. We actually trust the shadow more than we trust our light. When we feel unsafe, what do? We leverage darkness. It's like when we feel unsafe, it's usually the rationalization that we needed to raise hell. It's like when I feel challenged, instead of like leaning more towards like understanding and openness and love and like intimacy and all of that, usually people are like, let me get my guns. We see some of that in the world right now. So many of the wars, we see that in the Middle East right now. It's like, the tiny metaphor that we often use, which is like hurt people, it's something that we need to evolve out of, but it's also something that is so deeply ingrained. You hurt me, I will raise hell against you. That's something that we live by and that we are asked to evolve out of. So we have a big trust in our shadow. It's like, I'm going to bring all the capacity for evil that I have inside of me. I don't know if you're a mother, just think about it for a second as a parent, or just imagine you have even your puppy, you have an animal that you love a lot, and somebody just drives on top of your cat, your dog. Oh my God, some people would raise hell against that other person. It is really difficult to access love there. So the point that I'm just trying to make here is we have a huge mistrust. We give a lot of lip service to, I want to embrace my light. I want to let my light call the shots. I want to really embrace my power, my brightness, and all of that. But there's something visceral that often comes up. It's like, this may expose me. Embracing this brightness may expose me. People may get jealous of me. People may try to attack me. There are all these fears that come up because a part of you is so good at evaluating the potential harmful consequences of you embracing your light. We have a part of it that is so good, a spiritual calculator. It's like that part of you that I call, you may call it a saboteur, but it's that part of you that is good at calculating. It's just like, are you really sure you are able to embrace not only the responsibilities and the consequences that come with actualizing your light? Because a lot of our brightness is actually, we can sense it, we kind of feel into the potential of it, but it's really repressed in the shadow. Because maybe at some point growing up, you allowed yourself to share an aspect of that beauty, and maybe a parent, a caregiver didn't know how to celebrate that. Acknowledgement was maybe scarce, or you one time at school you shared something, work of art that you did, and your crush, your high school crush made fun of you, and you're just like, holy shit, no, I can't express that any longer, I can't do that. Or something happened. I've worked with so many women at some point, especially the women that had an experience of harassment, of sexual assault for their beauty. They would see another woman in the beautiful embodiment of her sensuality, and they would get triggered. They would get triggered because they have lost access to it. And when they see another woman embracing that fully, something gets stirred inside. So the golden shadow is the gold we have in the dirt, the gold we have in the dark, is the part that the things that we get to excavate. We get to romance that brightness that we want, that we feel unworthy of, that we think it's unsafe to fully embrace. And the journey of the golden shadow is really, every time I work with people on a one-on-one level, even in a group capacity, and they are interested in their golden shadow, we usually go through the experience of like, you're gonna make a list of all the people that you judge and all the people that you envy, all the people you admire, and we're gonna romance. What are the specific traits you see in them that make you put them on the pedestal? What causes the infatuation? What are these traits? And we're going to trace these traits in your own history, because these traits are there unless you wouldn't even see them in someone else. We're going to look at the people that you envy, and sometimes envy hides as judgment. And we're going to look at what are the specific traits, because sometimes it's pointing at repressed desires or repressed gifts. And you see, maybe you see an artist that is like having great success out there, but you yourself, you're an artist, you're like, probably they sold their soul to the devil in order to be able to have so much success. We kind of judge the things we envy. We stay in it. We kind of judge it so that we can justify not reaching for it within ourselves. Life is wanting to demonstrate to you your brightness your entire life. It doesn't take long to realize what the golden shadow of somebody is. You just look at what their life is demonstrating. What are the things that they are valuing? What are the things that they are judging? What are the things that they are envying? What are the things that they are admiring? Who are the people that they put on the pedestal? And you're going to see within all of that, there is a brightness that is screaming to be reclaimed. And the more you are able to do that, the more you build it, the more you actually de-shame your light. Because one of the ways we push our light away unconsciously, we are usually not aware of that, is we stain it unconsciously to rationalize putting it in the shadow. We surround our light with shame and with like hurt, probably pain from the past, but also they're like, oh, if I embrace that, I'll be rejected by this person, or we surround it with fears. So you basically take that gold and you kind of rinse it in the river. So the, the, the imagery of a gold digger, it's a little bit what we're doing when we work with the golden shadow. It's that brightness that you see there in the dark, and you have to walk through all this muck in order to go reclaim that. It's a very sobering journey. It's a very empowering journey. And that's the golden shadow, because your shadow doesn't just contain pain and trauma and hurt from the past. It doesn't just contain that. It doesn't just contain grief. It also contains the beauty that has been repressed. It contains let's say you aspire to live deep sensuality, and you have a history of like sexual trauma. Odds are you may have to move through some of the sexual trauma in order to access the pure, beautiful, sensual energy that at some point you had to disown because it wasn't safe, because you didn't know how to appropriately contain that without being a prey, so there is just find the journey of embracing the golden shadow tremendously fascinating. And I see people getting out of that and being able to share what they had to share with the world, being able to bring their gifts online, being able to express their whatever beauty, whatever desires that were repressed. So to me, the other part that I would love to say is when I started diving into spiritual work, and that was even before I was in the PhD and all of that, the first books that I had by the um my first teachers, the Wayne Dyers, the Abraham Hicks in the years like 2010 to 2009, and beginning to get into this material, I was so seduced by the perception of just like, let me go for the love and light. Let me just focus on like, you know, these things that I would love to experience. And there is value to it. I am not dissing all of that. It's really important. And when you're doing that, when darkness comes up, love it. Be intimate with it. You are basically putting your journey of like embracing your brightness on steroid. When instead of like running away from the shit that is coming in between, you can actually look at your resistance. You can actually look at the fears with awareness, acceptance, compassion. What that does, it allows you to dissolve the hurt that was surrounding the brightness that was in the shadow. It allows you to cleanse your energetic field so that you can be even more of a positive, um, a cooperative component to what you want to create. There is really a harmonious relationship between shadow and light. They work together. They are twin brothers, and they want to serve you equally. So yeah, that's what I can say about the golden shadow.
This is so fascinating for me, listening to that particular explanation, because when what we talk about here at LiVELY is we don't see anything like technology, the phone. It's like we don't see that as like a saboteur, like in other words, we don't see the phone or the algorithms that are trying to captivate you and bring you in as a saboteur. I think everything that we can look at is a discussion of our perception, our relationship to it. There can be somebody that can be online for 6 hours and feel they've been productive, they've delve deep into some work, purposeful work that they've wanted to do, have conversations, you know, speak to their grandmother, whatever it may be. And there be somebody else who feels completely depleted by those 6 hours, much the same way as like eating chocolate. Somebody feels depleted, somebody doesn't, coffee, whatever it may be. But the idea, the invitation that we keep coming back to is, it is ultimately how we embody our, I guess, perceptions and understandings and life experiences of the things that feel haunting within us, how we actually meet those conversations and have those relationships and build on those relationships. I'm a mother as well. So like having to create a relationship with myself as a mother, I mean, most mothers understand that. It's like, I didn't have that relationship per se, but then that relationship became available. And so therefore,
Yeah.
I need to look at myself in this way, you know, and so this is very much the invitation for technology as well. Like anything, I think nature's presiding law is balance, you know, to be able to stand between the tension of opposites, as a friend of mine, Erasmus, says. He says, you know, to stand between the tension of opposites and to literally stand in strength. That is the hero's journey, you know, to be able to feel it all and to let the pendulum swing whichever way, and to be completely absorbed in life, in the feelings, in the emotions. You know, there's so much new agey stuff that says you're not your feelings, you're not your thoughts, you're not your this, you're not your, you're all of it. You know, nobody's here to tell you what you are not. You are here to experience the contrast of all things, to experience that even those things that you consider to be, you know, the question marks of life. It's such an incredible experience to go through, like what you've had to go through. I mean, when you were telling your story about witnessing death and working with people who have had to basically go through a certain death within themselves to shed the things within them that has prevented them from walking a path of purpose, going through the process of healing and understanding their shadows. I think there is no work more lively in this world than that, because it never casts, you know, like when I'm in the sun and I get a breeze and I get a moment of shadow, oh my God, do I enjoy that? And vice versa. If I'm in the shadow, I get a moment of light, my God, do I enjoy that? And we can understand that on the perspective of skin. We can understand how that feels on the body. And so within ourselves, we've got the same capabilities, is to allow the sun to warm us and allow the shadow to cool us, and also to give us like that breath that we need. And so life, I feel, is this constant unfolding of this dance that we get to do with both. And if we do a dance with both, then arguably what we could be saying is that there is nothing ever wrong. There's nothing ever wrong. And so the greatest feeling there is if there's nothing ever wrong, then how do you live your fullest life? If you cannot see it as wrong, if you cannot see it as shameful, humiliating, what ends up happening is we live on this high vibration of truth. And that is something that is, you know, I've witnessed people right before they go up on stage, I was encouraging them to go up on stage and speak their truth. And doing events for these things, right? And these were first-time speakers. And I watch them as they are trembling, as they are sweating, as they are breathing deeply, as they are crying, as they're holding their stomachs. I see those moments of getting ready to get up, to get ready to feel all those things that you need to feel, but to get up. Yeah. And then those moments are my favorite moments that I've ever witnessed, is because what happens behind the scenes, what we call in the shadows, behind the scenes, it's magic. It's magic. It's lifeful. It's purposeful. It's full. That's why the word full is in that word. And so I think what you're doing, Xavier, the coaching that you offer and the way you express yourself from this deep place of knowing, this deep place of truth, and meeting people and going, show me your truth. I'm going to hold that in this moment so we can both look at it together. And I think the guides that are available to us all across the world, you know, guiding you back to yourself, as I said to you before we entered this call, it is the most beautiful work that you know, that I'm so grateful that you are here in this time. And I always say this is the most exciting time to be alive, because we get to really assess, you know, the values, the virtues, whatever you want to call it, and we get to live that fully, you know. And I can see, and you know, where you can witness people in their purpose, they've had to go through so much to get to that, and it just reverberates out of them. And it does most definitely with you, Xavier. And I think, you know, everyone that's listening to this, it just, you feel the resonance of it so deeply, because within yourself, if you're feeling it deeply, is because there's such a truth to it, that you're your own hero within you, that you're working on the courage to walk that more heroic path, is calling you. That's the ultimate calling there is. It's not the phone call, it's the calling within you that keeps calling you to life, to keep calling you to living it fully and living life lively. And I have to say thank you for the incredible work that you do. You've got an incredible social media account, incredible coaching programs that are available on your website. I'd love for you to give us, I guess, your final words of wisdom, and also let our audience know where they can support and also be part of the work that you do.
Well, I want to say again, a big thank you to you for creating the opportunity for this conversation. Um, the final word that I can offer is you came here to be human, so be it fully. We usually have this, when you look at many of the things that we do, even as we lean into spiritual exploration, self-development, we often attempt to run away from our humanness. We try to ascend, we try to transcend, we try to, you know, fly above the challenges of that come with being human. I've found the most radical degrees of personal transformation through embracing my humanness. Your soul came here to be human. Your soul chose this experience to be human right now in this moment. And, you know, I'm not one to believe that there are mistakes to the human experience, but many people arrive on the earth plane and they witness all the hurt, the pain, the suffering. They're like, oh my God, I'm out of here. And if they don't have the courage to take their own lives, they take their own lives by fragmenting, dissociating, running away, doing drugs and doing, you know, I never went towards like hardcore drugs, but I've done similar in terms of like food addictions, trying to run away from pain, heavy on alcohol at some point. It's like we try to run away from the human experience, whereas the journey is actually to descend a kind of soul-like awareness, compassion, acceptance into the human experience. So you came here to be human. What if you embraced it fully? What if you romanced the human condition for as long as you're here and you romanced it deeply? What if that was actually the way? What if we are actually on the journey of awakening the golden human? You know, it's so easy to ascend. Really, if you really want to ascend, like right now, just is gonna sound terrible, but when you die, you ascend instantaneously. But it is really hard to descend. It is really hard to be here fully. It is challenging to be here fully. It is challenging to be here when your shadows are raging, when your fears are raging, when your anxiety is raging, but can you be here nonetheless? And the more you start doing that, the more you start realizing there is absolutely no reason why your life shouldn't be more lively. If I'm gonna use your, you know, your term, your brand, it's like there's absolutely no reason, even in the midst of deep sorrow, but your life shouldn't be more lively. And there are the types of sorrows that I've experienced. The biggest one that I can remember is really surrendering to the experience of feeling absolutely betrayed and alone by family and friends and feeling I was made fun of, I was called crazy and all of that. It's just a crushing weight of grief and sadness. And I just allowed myself to be like, okay, you know what, grief, let's go. Today, I don't care how I end, how things end. I really don't care. If you're gonna crush me, just crush me. If you're gonna crush me today, just fucking crush me. I'm tired of running from you. And I was just like there wailing and weeping and all of that on my bed in that one bedroom apartment that I had in 2014 after I decided to drop it all off. And there is almost a bliss in the fall. It is so weird to explain. It is so weird to explain. I have one teacher, Robert Augustus Masters, he calls it happy sad. It is that feeling where you let the pain just have its way with you and you stop fighting it. And you're like, yes, this fucking hurt deliciously. And it's not in some sort of weird masochism, romanticizing. It's just like, oh my God, it's like something is being discharged out of you. It's like your heart doing whatever it already knows how to do if you just stop resisting. So, what would it look like to actually embrace the human condition more fully? All of it more fully. That would be the last thing that I would love to offer here. And that's a big aspect of the work I'm doing. And I see the most radical degrees of transformation, whether it's relational, whether it's like in the work that people bring to the world. The more they are willing to embrace that, the more they become true devotees of their brightness. It's like disciples and devotees of the highest personal truth that they have access to. I often call it living at the speed of their light or living at the speed of their truth. It is something beautiful to witness in any human being. So yeah, these are the final words. And for anyone who is interested in my work, my website is there, xavierdagba.com. They're interested in, I I have a community, membership community that would be a low entry to my universe. I have my social media, my Instagram, my YouTube, and people can explore that. And the group programs, or if people are really ready to go full in, the one-on-one opportunities as well. But yeah, that's what I do, and it is such a pleasure to be able to have this conversation and to just receive your presence and to receive the work that you're doing, to feel the heart that is animating you. But really a beautiful intention that is animating you. So that feels good it feels good to be in your presence. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. My heart feels so full and just beaming. I can feel it literally, energetically. And as I said, I can't thank you enough for showing up during this time of history where I get to have these conversations with yourself. And I'm cheering you on, Xavier. I just want you to know it's a massive, my big cheerleaders around you, sending you all my cheerleaders to keep doing this incredible work. And for everybody that's listening,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for joining us on this incredible, lively conversation. And I'll see you on the next episode.